When we talk about Taekwondo, we talk about perseverance and indomitable spirit.
What everyone perceives it to be is a physical activity, but really it's a mental exercise.
My name is Mathiam, and we are at Silver Lining Taekwondo. This is our business. My wife and I purchased this location back in 2010, teaching martial arts and serving the community. And it's been a great go, and we're having fun doing it, and very proud of it. I am from Senegal, a small West African country. I was born in a small town called Louga, where I spent most of my childhood, and I was raised by my uncle, who is a teacher. And the reason that happened was my father worked for the Senegalese government. And as such, he worked at the discretion of the president of the country. So he could be moved in any given area based on where he was needed the most by the president. My father, at some point during my uncle's education, my father had something to do with that, right? So my father helped him, so it was kind of like a way of paying back the services and the favor that my father did for him when he was going through school himself. And him being an educator, it was the logical move for me, the logical place for me to be, because I could get the help that I needed. As a child, it was very difficult for me to wrap my head around all of that, because there was a lot of things that took place that I didn't view as fair or justified or necessary in the way I was brought up or in the way I was dealt with. So I would go to school, and let's say I did something wrong, which I can't imagine, but the teacher then would have the authority to beat me up even if they wanted to, and boy, did I get beat up. Growing up and basically not being able to make any mistakes. Every time I made a mistake, it resulted in a belt or slashing through my back. Or I say the wrong words would result in a belt slashing through my back and stuff like that. There was basically zero tolerance for me to be a child, and I was always afraid of making mistakes. I was always afraid of saying the wrong thing, and that makes it very difficult to ask for advice or communicate with the grown-ups, the people you really rely on and depend on for guidance. I think to this day, part of me still resents it, but it also served the purpose because it made me be the person I am today. Because going through that, I made a vow to myself that if I were ever blessed with children, they would never endure the things I endured as a child. And they will never see the things that I saw. My mom told me, this pain is temporary. Don't lose sight of the big picture. Succeed and make something of yourself, right? So those words, to this day, every time I face a challenge, I can hear my mom's voice telling me that this is temporary, this is temporary.
My name is Mbow, and I am the son of Mathiam Mbow. When my grandma told my father, struggling in the moment to succeed in the future, it applies to just about everything that you struggle with, whether that be work, schoolwork if you're a student, or just getting along with people and making those decisions. It will always stick around with me, especially that in particular, because I want to succeed in the future. I might be 16, but I have really big dreams that I'd like to achieve, and I definitely think that my father has impacted my life in that way to never stop because of what other people tell me or whatever happens. Even in the moment, if I struggle with something, I have to keep working. I have to stay determined just so that I can achieve those goals. Those goals are not possible if you stop working at it. Those goals are not possible if you give up. And with that being said, struggling in a moment, but for success in the future, if you just stick to that and you get through the struggle, your life ahead will always be fine.
What I did was, I would hang out with my friends because I needed a form of distraction to let go of the stress that was building up inside me. So I would play, I would do soccer with my friends, I would do drama at high school, I would do anything I could get involved in just so I can forget about life as it was for me, right? So whether it was soccer or drama or running in the forest barefoot, I did it all. But while all that was happening, everybody else in the house thought that I was becoming a what's the word, a delinquent, right? A vagabond, something, and I was probably going to end up in jail, or worse, I was going to end up dead. But at night when everybody was in bed, that's when I opened my books and I would spend all of my nights studying. I didn't get much sleep. It was hard, but it was a strategy that worked for me. A week before the test was scheduled to happen, I'm left-handed. A week before, I broke my thumb, and I had to have a big cast, so I couldn't hold the pen to write. We didn't have computers, everything was on paper. And I was told that if I were not able to take the test, I was going to have to repeat the year. Now, all the way throughout that high school, I had good grades, very good grades. And I knew I was capable of passing the exam because I was prepared for it. And this one thing, this one hiccup was going to end it for me. And I was not going to let that happen, So in a week, I learned to write with my right hand. It's not great, but it's legible. You can read it. So in a week, I learned to write with my right hand, and I took the exam with my right hand, and I passed it. So that was and again, that validated the words my mom told me, that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And no matter how much pain you're going through, it does not define you. The moments of hardships you go through now, actually, it's through those hardships that your true character is found. Because what people do during hard times is really what brings out their colors. My uncle, at the time, he was very certain that I wasn't going to pass it because he never saw me study. Because the times I was studying, he was asleep, right? So he didn't think I was prepared for that. But the other people in the house that was studying day and night, that it was, every time you walk by their room, you see them opening the books. They are like really into it, at any given time of day. So when that day came, the other two people that took the test with me, they were so nervous to go get the results. And they asked me to bring the results for them, and I said, absolutely. So when I went, they read the names, they read my name, and I'm very proud and very happy, but they didn't call their names. So when I came home that day, it was around lunchtime, and my uncle asked me, and I went in my room, he asked me, how did it go? I said, I passed my exam. And then he asked me about the others. I said, no, they did not. And then he could not wrap his head around it because he couldn't figure out how that was possible, because he never saw me study. So when I graduated from high school, at the time, there was one university primarily that was in Dakar. That's where everybody went. And 3 years prior, they opened another university in the northern part of Senegal in a city called Saint Louis. So I was the third generation students to attend that university. So that's where I went, in Saint Louis. When I told my mom that I passed my exam, she was so proud, very, very, very proud. And at the end of that summer, before I went to college, she didn't want me to go to college with only 2 sets of outfits. So she took me shopping because she wanted to buy me new clothes. This is a new chapter in my life, and she wanted to make it so that I would have everything that I needed. So as we're going through, there's a lot of people, cars, and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, these 4 guys came out of nowhere and started shouting at us and screaming and being protective. I'm like, I don't know what you guys want. I don't know what your plans are, but you will not touch my mom unless you kill me first, because you don't talk to my mother like that, right? And then luckily there was a lady who had a table. One of the street vendors saw this whole situation and saw that my mom was wearing a gold necklace. So she understood right away what that whole commotion was about. So she pulled me aside and said, these guys can kill you because they were all bigger than me. I'm like, absolutely, I do. And then she said, well, they are not trying to hurt you. They just want to create a distraction to make it easy for one of them to snatch the necklace your mom is wearing. I'm like, aha, that makes sense. So I walked around my mom, I took off the necklace, and I put it in my pocket, and I look at them, I say, if this is what you are after, you're going to have to kill me before you get it. And they started screaming and shouting a few more words, and then they went away, and disaster averted. That also was a defining moment in my life, because when we went back home, my mom was telling everybody how brave I was and all that stuff, and she was so proud of me for protecting her and all that stuff. And I'm sitting in my room thinking, I almost died before I even started to live my life. And that was the moment I decided that I was gonna learn some form of a martial art, that I was gonna turn my body into a weapon that I would destroy anybody who tries to hurt me or hurt my family. And that's how when my martial arts journey started really being serious. That's when I started really taking it seriously. I tried different forms of martial arts, but Taekwondo is the one that really resonated with me and the one that really spoke to me. And I stuck with it ever since. In 1996, when I graduated from college, I got a call to the dean's office, and then he told me that we have an exchange program between our university and the University UW-Madison here in Wisconsin, and he asked me if I wanted to come to America, and I said, well, I can't afford it, and he told me about the program and told me that I had to take a test, and because they wanted to keep it fair and offer it to all the students who attend. We took the test, and there were two scholarships available, but they wanted to open it to everybody to be fair. So there was about 1,000 people, students that took the test. And then after that, when they graded all the papers, my best friend took first place, and I took second place, and that's how I ended up here. So when my visa situation finally came through, and I traveled to the US for the first time, that was an experience, because up until that moment, I never saw snow in my life. I only saw snow on television. That was it. I had no idea what it was like. And I traveled with another person who was part of the program, who was like the sponsor of the program. He was a professor at the university. As we landed in Chicago O'Hare, he is showing me where to catch the Van Gelder bus to get to Madison. And as he's doing that, he's taking me outside of the airport in the middle of this cold winter that I've never experienced. I am shivering to my bones. And as he's telling me, this is where the bus is gonna come from, he's walking towards a snowbank. And I'm just following him because I don't want to lose this man, because I was in a foreign land. I had no idea what I was doing or where I was gonna go. He grabs a handful of snow. I didn't have proper winter coat. He threw this thing at me, and that was it. I just lost it. I just went right back into the airport where it was warm. It was terrible. It was horrible. I spent 10 years working in corporate America. I worked for various organizations.
My name is Mathiam Mbow. When I met Mathiam, it was my first day at TDS Metrocom. I was the assistant to the president, and I felt like it was my job to go through our phone list and make sure that I was acclimated with individuals, departments that they worked in. And so I'm going through the list and I come across this name, and I had no idea what I was looking at. And I didn't know if I was looking at a male or a female. I knew nothing. And I was just afraid I was going to mutilate this person's name when I did find out who it was. So I'm at the coffee machine and I see this man on crutches and a beautiful African outfit. And I put two and two together and I just figured, hey, you're the one on the phone list that I couldn't identify. So male, check. How do we pronounce the name? Mutilated that name, by the way, for about 6 years. When I met Mathiam, I was just intrigued just by him as an individual. He was super, super happy and positive, and I hadn't met a lot of people like that in my life because that's how I am. Pretty much every Thursday we went to happy hour, the Muslim in a bar, sorry for the world. He didn't drink. He was a great dancer. We had a lot of fun dancing together, and he was just a light. I didn't really understand Mathiam's culture or even what it meant to be Muslim until 9/11. And 9/11 happened, and all I could say is don't go anywhere in those beautiful outfits that you wear, and don't tell anyone that you're Muslim, because I don't want you to become somebody's target for their anger. And that was kind of a turning point in our relationship. He got invited to a wedding on 9/11 years later, and the couple that got married, they wanted to change what 9/11 meant. They wanted it to be a symbol of love and not a symbol of hurt feelings or anger or hate or violence or anything else. But we're standing together in this beautiful Catholic church where the wedding took place, and I'm standing next to him. And this little voice in my head said, "This should be you." I didn't understand, like, what is this voice saying to me? Like, it's Mathiam. And I remember looking at him going, "No, voices, be quiet," you know? And the voices were right.
The last company I worked for, around like 2007, my father was very sick. And I got a call from my family telling me that there was not a whole lot of hope. And if I wanted to see him, I better hurry home at that time. Our son was about a year and a half, and my wife was very adamant that needed to meet him before, if this was going to be the end for him, he needed to meet him. But when I came back, the company I worked for, they let me go, because before I left, they told me they wouldn't give me permission to go. They wouldn't give me the time to go visit my father. So I told them, this is my sick father, and I don't care what they do, I'm going to go. You know, but they told me they couldn't guarantee that I would have a job when I came back. And sure enough, when I came back, they let me go. But I'm a man of faith. I'm Muslim, and I'm a man of faith, and I believe that everything that happens to me in my life is God's doing. And we always say that, you know, when God denies you something, that's because he has something bigger and better planned for you. And the very next day, as I'm on the market looking for another job, I got an advertisement, you know, through Craigslist. One of my wife's friends saw a gentleman who was hiring for a martial arts instructor. So she told me to apply. I'm like, that's a joke. People don't do martial arts full time for a living. People have another job. And then my wife says, what do you have to lose? Just try. So I sent an email, and it bounced back. So I'm like, told you this was a joke. And then she says, try again. And I'm like annoyed and all that stuff. I'm like, fine. So I sent the email the second time, and the next day I got a call that this person wanted to meet with me. I'm like, wow, this is happening. So I went, I met with him, we talked for a long time, and he says to me, I have 2 locations. I want to hire you as a general manager to manage both locations. What do you think about that? I'm like, that's fantastic. I'm game. But in 2010, he came to me and said, do you want to buy this location? Because I'm just going to go focus on this one. I said, well, I would, but the banks were not lending any money at the time. And that's when Scott comes in. You know, that's when I met. So 2 years prior, I met Scott, and he came and we started training one-on-one, and we became very good friends. And then when I talked to him about it, about the opportunity, he says, well, about time. Because I was going to talk to you about owning your own business if you wanted to. And if this is the case, I will be more than happy to help you purchase it.
So in 2018, Middleton experienced a 100-year flood. And I had never seen anything like it.
I was in Ethiopia at the African Taekwondo Championship. And my wife calls me to tell me that we had to close the school. And I asked why, and she said, because it flooded.
We had about 18 inches of water in the building. The entire school was covered in mud and just really icky, dirty, yucky stuff. And there was no power, and I had sent a message to our neighbors, who I called the Hood, and we had some amazing neighbors in our old neighborhood, and just said, Mathiam's in Ethiopia and the school's underwater. So I came here in the dark, and our friends showed up in just cars, just carloads of people. They came with their wading boots and their spelunking lights, and started to help me go through the school and just take out whatever we could and save whatever we could save. A brand new floor that we had put in, just months earlier, was destroyed, and It was awful. And I remember coming home really late at night, and Mathiam had been mugged while he was in Ethiopia the very first day, and he had his phone stolen. And so communicating was really difficult. But I sat down at the breakfast bar with the computer and just said, babe, we have, you don't even know, we've had a flood here in Middleton and it's really bad. And it was really hard to have to tell him that what he worked so hard on, what we invested so much in, personally, financially, whatever, that it was all gone. And all it took was a lot of rainwater to just wash it away. And like 2 days later, I had to hire a remediation company to come in and cut out all the drywall and take up all the mats and everything so that we could clean everything. I literally had to find a piece of paper that was drying out and write with a crayon or a pencil that I would pay whatever it cost to do the work. Otherwise, they wouldn't start the work. And I'm standing here in this disaster and looked like a war zone and signing my life away on this warped piece of paper and just said, I guess we'll figure it out, man, because this is our livelihood, this is our life. I brought him here. He was walking through and he just couldn't believe it. His eyes were just huge and he was overwhelmed by the disaster.
And then 5-6 days went by. I came back home, and then from the airport, we came directly here. When I opened the door, it looked like I was walking through a war zone or a tornado-ripped zone area. The first thought that entered my mind was, we are done. This is it. Time to start looking for a job because we cannot come back from this. And immediately I dismissed that thought. And I said, this is not the end. Because when we talk about Taekwondo, we talk about perseverance and indomitable spirit. And I kicked myself for even thinking that this was the end. And I looked around and I said, all right, what can we salvage? The chairs, of course, because it didn't get to the cushions, it just stopped at the legs. So we can clean that up. The bags, yes, we can clean that up because it just got to the base. But everything else, so we had to cut up the walls about 2 feet up, cut everything, rip off these mirrors, take everything down. And they were like like the Surf Pro, those disaster remedy companies, they had like all these tubes. It literally looked like a war zone. And I said to myself, all right, first things first, let's look for a temporary location where we can continue training because we cannot stop training. We started cleaning up, taking everything out. Those guys came and did everything. And every day I would get up, I would go teach, we'd go pick up kids. I teach until like 9 o'clock, whenever classes end. I'll go home, I'll eat, and I'll come back and I would start working here until 3 in the morning. So every wall in this room I painted, every wall. So I'm like, this is not gonna be the end for us. I cleaned all these chairs, I screw up, and the problem was, at the time there was some carpet here, and then when the carpet was lifted, it was glued. So we couldn't just put the mats on it because the mats were gonna get glued. So I had to scrape all that glue. I had blisters in my hands. So every day for 2 months, every day, I would finish teaching classes at 9. I would go home, shower, eat, sit a little bit, and then I would get back here around 11 and I would work on something, painting, doing something until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I go to bed. I get up and I repeat it. We rebuilt it, and we rebuilt it better. And that's when I say that when disaster happens, when God denies you something in my faith, that's because He has something bigger and better for you.
I count us fortunate because we had unbelievable support. We had our friends that helped us. We had our students and their families who said, what do you need? We can help. What can we do? And we had people in the community that were offering us space so that we could keep doing business. They say out of every fire, out of the ash comes something amazing. And honestly, I think we're stronger and better for the flood. And we know our purpose, we know our value. I know we're doing the right thing in the right place.
Wisconsin is like home to me because, first of all, the Wisconsin state, if you look at the map, it's very similar to the Senegalese map. Have you noticed that? Check it out. Pull up the Senegalese map and pull up the Wisconsin map. Very similar. So Wisconsin is home to me just because I consider it home because coming here opened so many doors and gave me so many opportunities. But I think what I am, where I am now and what I am doing now, I can serve better and I can reach more people, I can touch more lives for the better, improve people's lives, because that's what martial arts is for me, that's what Taekwondo is for me. And moving to Wisconsin opened that door for me. That's the essence of martial arts training for me, changing lives. That's what this is all about. That's what it's been all about, and that's what it will always be about for me. And being here in this great state of Wisconsin and this great community of Middleton, where people are so supportive of the mission and our values and our vision and everything, just makes my job a lot easier. And doing what I love to do and taking care of my family doing it, I cannot ask for a better gig.
Martial arts is a lot of things, and what everyone perceives it to be is a physical activity, but really it's a mental exercise. And I didn't really get it, I don't think, until I started working here. I've always thought that Mathiam was extraordinary. I didn't know if that was his religion, his family, his Taekwondo. I didn't know what exactly it was, but as I've been here, I see the value so much more of what Taekwondo teaches us mentally and personally. And I see the goodness that it brings in people.
Growing up in Senegal, I always heard about the American dream. And the American dream, and growing up, I also always heard that America is the melting pot, the country where you have all ethnicities, all groups, all backgrounds united, and everybody come together. So when you are given an opportunity, are you gonna jump on it and make the most of it, or are you gonna squander it? When I got that opportunity, I jumped on it and I made the most of it, because that's what my mom advised me to do. That's what my father advised me to do. That always look for ways to make your life better, because that's the only life I have. So that's the American dream for me. So when this opportunity fell in my lap, I was not going to squander it. And when I say opportunity, I mean getting the scholarship to come here in the first place. And when I say opportunity, I mean meeting that lady at the job fair that offered me the job that eventually led me to becoming a resident of the United States. When I mean opportunity, I talk about meeting my wife and her father that eventually made me promise on her deathbed that I was gonna become a US citizen because of the challenges I had when I traveled with my son to Senegal. When I talk about opportunity, I mean that person offering me a job to manage both of his martial arts schools and ended up buying one of the locations. When I say opportunity, I mean my friend Scott coming into my life at a time when there was like a market crash, when nobody was lending money, and he came into my life and gave me enough money to purchase a business. Those are opportunities, and those opportunities I will never, ever let go to waste or squander. So the American dream to me is you have an opportunity and you make the most of it to be successful. Anybody can do that. It doesn't matter whether you were born in this country or whether you are emigrating in this country. It does not matter. As long as you are here and you have a good work ethic, you have a good heart, you are a good member of society, you contribute, you pay your taxes, you contribute to society, and you are a positive influence in your society, you are living the American dream. For me, that's what it is. I'm working very hard. I try my very best, and I want to give back to my community, the community that supports me. And my American dream is to help the students that come through here experience the power of Taekwondo as I experienced it, because that literally changed my life for the better. I want to give that opportunity to my students as well, so they can live their American dream, so they can write their own success story. But we have to give them the tools to do that. Taekwondo gave me the tools. When we talk about discipline, when we talk about perseverance, when we talk about indomitable spirit, building a more peaceful world, being a positive person, a good human being, those are the values of Taekwondo. And if I can get that to my students so they understand, if they work hard and they contribute, they're going to be successful. That's the American dream for me. And that's what I want them to also have.
Tell me about your introduction to American football and the Packers.
My American football, I did not get that at all. When I first came, we had a soccer team. It was called Africa United. So it was like a lot of, like, we were all Africa. We were from African countries. And we collectively came together and we formed a team. And we were pretty good when we were not bickering. So, but it got to a point where, like, we would normally have like a practice, and then there would be like the UW Badgers would be playing or the Packers would be playing, and they're like, no, we cannot go to practice until after the game. I'm like, cool. All right, so for me, soccer is 2 halves, 45. So 90 minutes, everything is done. And I'm sitting there, it's like 3 hours later, I'm like, what is this? And the whole game is like an hour. Why 3 hours? I didn't get that. And all the commercials, and I didn't get the rules too. So all I saw was people throwing balls, catching balls, and hitting each other, and it looked stupid to me. Honestly, that's how I felt. I'm like, this is the stupidest sport ever. And then I met her brother.
You met whose brother?
Laura's brother. I met Laura's brother. So when, because Laura and I, we were friends for like 5 years before we even started dating. And when we started dating, that very first year we started dating, she took me to New York because her brother lived in New York at the time. And then we went, and this guy, you don't want to watch a Packer game with him if the Packers are losing. He is intense. We love him, man. We love him. He's a great dude, but he takes his Packers way too seriously. So, and then they started explaining to me the rules a little bit, and I started to understand it a little bit better. And then the game started to make more sense to me. And I appreciate the physicality of it, the skill level it requires. And these big dudes, like all the things they do and how they do it, moving that mass. And I appreciate the athleticism and I appreciate the discipline it requires to get to that level. It reminds me a lot of the discipline it requires to be good at Taekwondo or anything you do in your life. So that's why I got to appreciate the game and all the strategies that go into it, like when they're talking about like the blitz and the plays and all that stuff. I'm like, wow, so this is a science basically. So then the more I hung out with Laura's brother and Laura's family, watching games, I started getting more into it. Well, sadly, I have to say, I think I like the game more than they do now. Sundays at the Mbow household, it's football game. So when football season is over, we get very sad. Because at the Mbow household on Sundays, we cook food, we watch the games. It doesn't matter who plays. We just enjoy watching a good game and hanging out as a family and doing things. So, yeah, got to love the Packers, man. They are my team. And hopefully they win tonight.